what in the world am I doing? That's the question that I asked myself one time when I realized that my priorities were completely out of line.
Keep listening so you can hear what we did to get our priorities back into the right order. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 48 of Side by Side Business. We are Larry and Sue Pruitt. I think I forgot to say that last time. Nobody's going to know who we are in the last one. But we are wrapping up today our series on Psalm 127. It's been a hugely impactful chapter to our business and our life. And if you watched the last episode, you know how deeply it has impacted us. If you haven't yet, go do it. If for nothing else to see us cry. So, but go do that. And so we're going to finish that up today. We're going to talk about verses 3 through 5.
Yes. There's only 5 verses in this chapter of Psalm. And it's incredible just how much is in it. And so we'll kind of summarize as we go here a little bit, but we wanted for this episode, we wanted to share a story that, again, is kind of a real life impactful story, something that we went through, and how these verses affect us and how it changed us, how they changed us. And so when we started this, I started with, what in the world am I doing? And I literally said those words out loud in my vehicle when I was all by myself as I was driving home one evening. And just to kind of back this up a little bit, I had been in the day job that I had before we went full-time as entrepreneurs, which at the time of this recording is 12 and a half years, kind of coming up on the 13-year mark. At the beginning, I wasn't really working that many hours.
No, it was an amazing, hours-wise, it was amazing for a family.
And then all of a sudden it expanded, kind of like right before our very eyes. And we were open from like 8 to 8. I was the overall manager of the practice. It was a dental practice. And so I had to be there most of those hours. I wasn't supposed to, but it just kind of happened.
You know how that is. It morphs to fill the space. Yeah.
And it was just really hard for me to walk out of the door when there were still patients there, activity going on. So most evenings I wouldn't get out of there until 8 o'clock at least. And sometimes it would go even later. And so there was one particular evening, it was the winter time of the year. I hate winter anyway. And as I was leaving, it was dark. And so that's not terribly unusual in the winter months because it's getting dark at 5 o'clock or whatever. But I honestly could not figure out in my mind what time of day it was. I should also say that my office was in the basement.
Yeah. So you didn't get to see any of the daylight hours really, unless you ventured upstairs.
Yes. I pretty much stayed in the basement the whole time. Our lunchroom was in the basement. And so I wouldn't go out for lunch or anything. Anyway. So sometimes I would leave closer to 5 or 6 o'clock on some occasions, or maybe it'd be 8 o'clock. And this particular evening, I just had no idea what time of day it was. Had an old 1996 truck, so I didn't even have a clock in the the radio clock or whatever. And so I was just thinking, what time is it? And I went past a bank that had the clock outside there, and it said 9:35 p.m. And I looked at that, and I would always try to think through like what's going on at home. I try to make that transition into what am I going to be walking into? You
were always really good at making the transition from work to home during that drive home, so that when you came home, you were fully present. I really appreciated that.
Yes. And so all of a sudden it hit me at this time. Okay. Obviously you've already had supper.
Yeah.
Right. So
we didn't wait that late.
Sue cooked some amazing meal, and I wasn't going to be able to eat it warm. It was going to be in the fridge, and I was going to have to nuke it and then eat leftovers. And I kind of got mad about that at that very moment. And then I also realized that the younger kids are in bed already. And I have missed out on an entire day with them because I was at work. And then it hit me that like, this is not the first time this week. This is not the first time this month that this has happened. Because, you get those rare occasions. You can work with that and deal with that.
Right.
And I literally just said out loud, what in the world am I doing? And I look back and I laugh at it now, but I was mad. I was disoriented. I probably shouldn't have been driving, but I came home and I, it was just discouraging and frustrating.
Well, do you think it's right to say that it was at that moment that you realized I'm not living the priorities that I want to live?
Yes. I think very clearly in my mind, I thought something has to change.
Yeah.
Like we had made some really intentional decisions young in our marriage and our relationship, because I was kind of on the corporate path at the very beginning. I was working for a company that there was room for growth, and that company was going to be buying other locations. There was a lot of potential there, but I was working a lot of hours then, and you were working a lot of hours then too, because you worked at the same place. And we just decided that's not for us. And I took a job that was closer to where I grew up, and so I could be close to parents. We did all this stuff for family. So all of our career choices had been with that in mind. At one point, I was able to come home for lunch every day, and I was, able to see the kids during the day and everything. And so all of that had gone away. All of the priorities that we had, the reasons that I had the particular job that I had, all of those reasons had really gone away. The hours had expanded. I wasn't able to come home for lunch anymore, and I'm missing out on my family. And so there's the realization hit that something must change here.
Yeah. And so what we're talking about today is Psalm 127. And so we've already talked about how when we trust in him, he gives us peace.
Yes.
That's verse 1.
That was verse 2.
Oh, that was verse 2.
So verse 1.
Oh, sorry, verse 2. Oh, he provides, protects, and builds. That's verse 1. That's right, because that's about the watchman and the builder and all that. Yeah, sorry. Right. Oh my, I know the song better than that, I thought. Then verse 2, he gives us peace and he gives us rest. And so that leads right into the final part of the psalm. And that shows the blessings of our posterity when we get our priorities in order. And here's what those verses say. They say, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate.
Oh, there's so much there. So we're covering 3 verses in this episode here, but they just tie together so well. And when we see there, like, again, the blessing of family, that's not what our world sees today.
No.
Or the world teaches or preaches today. Marriage is like, I don't know if you really hear this anymore, but I remember guys talking about his wife being the old ball and chain. She was tying him down. She was, not allowing him to do the things that he wanted to do.
The old lady.
Yeah. Guys, don't
do that. Don't say that.
Speak kindly
don't
with your wife.
That. But the wife is not the only one who is spoken about derisively. Sure. There's also the derisive speech about the husband as the man child, as the big baby. We hear about the man cold, and so the world speaks wrongly about both husbands and wives.
Yes, and so unfortunately, even as believers, we can be influenced by the culture in a negative way. We are to be salt and light. We are to be influencing the culture. But unfortunately, sometimes that gets reversed. And it's hard because we're just inundated with it. And even like some TV shows, there's some TV shows that I've watched the reruns of from the 90s or early 2000s. And normally the husband is just a complete idiot. And normally he's lying like crazy to his wife, and she doesn't pick up on it until, way down the road and everything. The good thing about those shows is they normally wrap everything up really nicely within about 45 minutes.
Or 22.
22 minutes if it's a shorter episode. And then everything is fine again.
Yeah.
So, but that's not how real world things work. When we talk disparagingly about our spouses, whenever we do things that are, behind their back and such, it leads to deep, deep hurt.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to follow the world's advice, obviously. Right. And so we want to look into scripture here, like these verses here today. But God says very differently than what the world says. The husband and the father mentioned here in Psalm 127, he is blessed and he is put into a position of power because of his family. When it says there that he shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. In the gate, that's a position of power and authority, and he is debating and discussing things with his enemies there. He will not be put to shame. And that's right on the heels where it's talking about the fruit of the womb is a reward, and like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. All right. And then blessed the man who fills his quiver with them. Now, I feel like we need to pause here just real briefly.
Yeah, that's not language we normally hear today.
No, it's not language that we normally hear today. And so this is definitely talking about the blessing of children to a family. And the first step in a family is for a husband and wife to get married.
Right. That's the birth of the family. At the wedding day, a new family is born.
That's right.
That's when you start your family.
And I've shared on here before my little pet peeve when people say, "Oh, that young couple is having a baby, they're starting a family." And I always wanted to say, like, no, they started a family when they got married. They're expanding their family now. And so that's what this verse is talking about. That they're like arrows in the quiver. And if you think about someone who is either hunting or who is using that bow and arrow to defend themselves, having more arrows is
that was kind of the weapon
thing.
of choice of the day. And so when a warrior went into battle, he had if he was an archer, he had bow and arrows. And you wouldn't want to go into battle with just one or two arrows, right?
No.
You'd want to have a full quiver of them.
Or if you see those superheroes that their quiver never gets
empty,
that's they just keep pulling them out. I'm like,
honey, that's not real life, though. It doesn't happen that way.
That would be kind of cool.
It would be kind of fun.
But I also do want to think here just briefly about, I know that there are people who want to have children and who aren't able to. And that is a really deep hurt for many people. And I don't understand that. I don't really have a whole lot of answers for that, except that God is a God of grace and mercy, and he is there for you. And so there's still hope. There's still,
in one sense, it's the trial that you're walking through, and everybody walks through some kind of a trial, and God is going to show you something through that. I don't know what it is, but he will show himself faithful through that. And so hanging on to that truth. And if you want to get a little bit of an idea about how you can hang on to that truth, watch our last episode.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. Because that was where we talked about dealing with anxiety and difficulty and all kinds of stuff like that.
Burnout.
But we do see that it's clear from scripture that, and these things build on themselves. Whenever you are trusting in the Lord for his provision, for his protection, then you feel his peace, and then you get these priorities in order also, and you see this posterity. And so there's many ways that can happen, but definitely in the context here, this is within the family and within the marriage begins, and then God blesses, and then there are children, and that family expands.
And so you mentioned getting our priorities straight. So let's talk about what those priorities are according to scripture. This is the priorities that we as believers should have. And these are priority relationships, and the way that we interact in the world. And our number one priority for every believer is the Lord and your relationship with him. And then your second priority, if you're married, is your spouse. That is the next most important relationship that you have in your life. And you should treat it as such, as that high of a priority. And then the next priority is with your children. As they join the family, they also become the next priority. And keep it that way. Keep it God, spouse, children. Even after children come into the home, a child-centered home is a home that's out of balance. And so you want to make sure that you're giving I like to think of a lot of things this way, to say, give it its appropriate attention. And so, yes, there's a lot of attention that children should get. They absolutely should get your devotion, your attention, your work, your discipling, all those things. But just keep it in priority, and your spouse gets the first of that. And so you want to keep those in that order.
Yeah, I think that is so crucial on so many levels. But just literally, even in divorce proofing your marriage, because we see there's just so many marriages in a divorce, unfortunately, and those first like 10 years or so are really tough. But like, I think that the second highest area of divorce is the empty nest couple. All right. So, and the only conclusion you can really come to with that is that they spend so many years in the middle there focusing in on their children that when the children grow up and leave, then the husband and wife look at each other and say, now, who are you again? And so when we focus in on the marriage relationship as priority over the children are blessed by that first and foremost, but then the marriage stays strong for long term. And we're living that out right now.
Yeah.
We've just got one of our 5 kids is still home, and
empty nest is right around the corner.
He's busy.
It almost feels a little empty nesty right now sometimes.
Yeah. And so so we've had that transition, and I think that is just important to recognize and to acknowledge that that we need to keep those priorities in order. And whenever, going back to my what the world am I doing moment, that was definitely a time of recognizing that priorities are out of whack. And what's crazy about it is I really wasn't even making a lot of money. I was donating a lot of hours. So I was trying to be a hard worker. I was trying to be responsible, trying to be a good employee. And I did have a lot of responsibility on me, but what I was getting paid wasn't even like, that's kind of the sad thing about it. I can't even say I was really pursuing money at that moment, but I think I had good intentions.
It was a reflection of your good character. It really was a reflection of your good character. So
thank you for saying
I can say that. I can say that. So yes. It was a reflection of your good character. Okay. So priorities, we've said God, your spouse, your children, and then everything else. So your business, your church work, your community work, everything comes after that. And so it's going to get a lower priority. So if there's ever a conflict between 2 priorities, the one that's higher is the one that should win. Okay. So think about that and keep that. And honestly, the Lord blesses us when we keep our priorities straight. And as we've mentioned, it doesn't always look like we expect it to look, that blessing. Sometimes we expect, for example, financial blessing, and that doesn't come. Sometimes we expect the blessing of an amazing relationship with our children, and that doesn't always come. Sometimes or maybe you have a season where it's just not so great. Sometimes we expect that things are just going to be perfectly harmonious between us as a couple because we've got our priorities straight. That's not always the case. Instead, God, and we've talked about that even in the last episode, sometimes God walks you through things together in order to strengthen your relationship with Him and with each other. And so those blessings may look different than what you thought, but they're still blessings. Don't miss them because they're not what you want it to be. And, as Larry said, that recognizing when you have your priorities out of order, that's your wake-up call. That's the Lord saying to you, okay, you've got some work to do to get things back in order here.
Yeah, for sure. And like one of the just real practical things that we did fairly well, it was hard to be consistent all the time, but we did something that we call connect time. And so that would be whenever I got home and the kids were still awake, then like, oh man, I miss the days when the kids would jump up and down and say, daddy home, daddy home, daddy home.
Yeah, that hasn't happened in a little while, has it?
No, they're too big for that now. But anyway, so whenever I would come home, they would do that. I would hug them, give them that attention. And then we would go over to the couch normally and sit down and have just an uninterrupted time. I say that as if that ever happened.
That was our effort. That was our ideal.
The goal was for us to have a conversation where we could just talk for 10 or 15 minutes. And so that did a number of things. It showed the kids that our relationship was priority. It showed the kids that we were we were good,
Yes,
right? We were
right.
good
Mhm.
together. Our relationship was solid. They felt a calmness and an assurance about that.
That is a place of huge security for children, and that's getting ignored a lot of times these days. A lot of times people say, well, kids are resilient, and even if the marriage isn't great or the marriage falls apart, they'll be okay. No, they will be hurt, and they can recover from that. They can find healing from that, but why cause the hurt? So yeah, that's something. Children find great security in knowing that mom and dad are good and okay.
Yeah. And so at the beginning of that, we explained it to them what we're doing. And then we would either, that'd be where they got to watch a video, or we would give them a coloring book or something special for them to do. And then we just said, Mommy and Daddy are going to have a discussion here, and, no interruptions. Yeah. Unless
there's blood or something is bending in the wrong place. So broken bones.
So pretty high standard there. Yeah. Okay. And at the beginning, I think it lasted 12 seconds.
Yes.
And then by the end,
effort to get there.
we would work up to a couple minutes with no interruption, and 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I would just say, show some patience with that. It is worth it. And especially depending on the age of your kids and how active the kids are and everything. But just, I would encourage you to give that a try. And something that we do provide also, a free resource that we have, are some connection cards, where it would have like a question of the day that you could kind of be a conversation starter. Sometimes we just said, how was your day? And that kind of got things started. But sometimes it's good to have a little starter there. And if you'd like to get a free set of those, you just go to sidebysidebusiness.com/connect, and you can download a free set of those cards from us.
And we can put that link in the description.
Yes, we should do that. And so, okay, so back to our story then.
Yeah.
So at that time that we recognized that things were out of whack, I think you had recognized probably way before I did, but once I did, then that does help, when both of you are on the same page here.
Yeah.
And then
I think this is an important thing, is that I didn't berate you about it.
You didn't.
I did make comments occasionally, but I didn't berate.
And sometimes they went over my head, and sometimes I was like, I just don't know what else to do about it. And then it wasn't painful enough yet
to make the change that needed to be changed. And so when you had that moment, what am I doing? When you had that moment, it was like, oh, now it's time to make some changes.
Yeah.
And so we did.
And so we came up with a plan, and I would say this was over the course of months.
Yes.
If I'm remembering right, this happened in the winter months, and then it was August of that same year that I turned in my notice, and I gave a 6-month notice.
Yeah.
So it was from the time that happened until the time I left was probably a full year. But over the course of that, let's say 6 months, from that realization to making a plan, we put a lot of things into place. We cut our budget dramatically. We stocked up on non-perishables.
Yeah.
And we just did a lot of different things like that, and decided we were going to go full time into the business,
right?
And see if it would work. The jury's still out on that, but 12 and a half years later, so far so good, right?
Okay, but do you regret it?
I have zero regrets on that. Zero regrets on getting priorities back into place. So again, financially, was it the best decision? I mean, no, it wasn't, because our business was not at a place where it could really sustain us financially.
But also, I don't think the job was going to provide for us for much longer either. Like that was not a good financial decision to stay in the job either.
No.
So we were faced with two tough financial decisions,
and we chose
the better of the two.
Yes. And we chose the better of the two because of what it allowed us to do.
Yeah.
And I can't even count the number of hours that I was able to spend with you, the number of hours I was able to spend with the kids as I would go out sourcing for product. That would be like at least a 12-hour day. And I would take one of the kids with me each time. And so the fact that we homeschooled and the fact that we were entrepreneurs, that gave us that kind of freedom to do that. And as you know, whenever you're talking with kids, you always want that quality time, but the quality time comes out of quantity time. And I wish it was different, but it's just the way it is.
Well, kids aren't a product or a thing that you can just push the button and get the thing out of them that you want. You want to have good, deep discussions with your children about important things, they don't just move into that immediately.
No.
They have to have the warm up
Yeah, for
of the
sure.
silliness sometimes, or of the
Yeah.
pizza for lunch, or of, whatever it was.
Yeah, the pizza buffets that we found, boy, those poor businesses, because my teenage boys going in there, they consume so much pizza. But
Yeah.
yeah, the belly full, you're kind of relaxed. And what was kind of funny about it is it's almost always the worst time for us,
Mm-hmm.
as the adults, as the parents,
because we're more tired.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, I get my belly full and I get tired.
Uh-huh.
The kids get energized, but that as I'm in the stores sourcing product, I've got a billion calculations going through my head. I'm, thinking about this, worried about that. And then they come up and ask me some deep question. And I'm like, oh, now? Really?
Yeah.
But I just learned to take that as the opportunity that the Lord was providing
Mm-hmm.
to answer the questions, to try to keep that conversation going on throughout the day. And it was just a rich, deep time that I was able to spend with the kids. And you would think that like they're just standing in a store for hours during the day. This has got to be boring, but they would fight over whose turn it was.
Yes.
We had to come up with a system to write it down.
Yes, we had to keep a chart.
And it didn't count unless they got a free meal out of the deal.
That's right. If it was just a couple hours and there was no restaurant visit, it did not count.
It did not count. So anyway, yeah, absolutely no regrets on that at all. It was certainly the best decision for us as a couple, for us as a family, and just the freedom that entrepreneurship gives. Like that would be hard to give up now.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the Lord's will, we'll do it and go back to a regular job. But we really don't ever want to do that.
Yeah.
And
that would be tough to give up that freedom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that decision was a good one.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And so I'd like to ask you to think about your own life and think about what priorities do you have? And are you living out the priorities that you say you have? Oftentimes we know what our priorities should be, and we'll say, well, this is our priority. But have you ever had a moment like Larry had when you recognize, I'm not living the priorities that I want to live right now? Are there any boundaries that you need to be setting so that you can live the priorities that you want to live? Is there anything there that needs to change? That is something that we do love to help people with. What influence do you want to have on your children? It's hard to have influence on your children if you leave home before they get up and if you come home after they're in bed. And so if that is something that is happening on a regular basis, pray about it. Ask the Lord to lead you to something that you could do. It may not look like what our solution was, but to something that you can do to make your children the priority that you say they are. And to make, is there anything, are you spending time in the Word? If not, if you're not spending time with the Lord, then what do you need to do to make that priority happen in your life? If you're not spending time building your relationship with your spouse, what is it that needs to change so that you have the opportunity to do that and to build your relationship with each other? All of these things are super important, and you need to make sure that you are putting together the life that when you get to the end of it, you will look back on with as few regrets as possible. We're all going to have some, but as few regrets as possible.
For sure. I love how you summarized all of that. And just makes me think here, something we really don't talk about on the podcast hardly ever. But we coach and work with couples to help couples to walk down this path of what we just explained today. We have been there. We have done that. We have been entrepreneurs at the time of this recording for like 21 years now, full-time 12 and a half years. And we just feel this passion and this desire to build into other couples and to help you along this journey. So if you feel like I've really been trying to get my priorities under control and I just don't know how to do it, well, it's not because you're not working hard enough. It's not because you're lacking the intellectual ability to do it. It's just that there are systems that you need in order to put into place. And we have developed these systems over the year. Many of them have been trial and error.
Yeah.
Many of them have been very rudimentary at the beginning, and we've refined it and developed them and such. And so we would love to share those systems with you. It's just one of those things where, I mean, we share an awful lot. Like, we're kind of an open book here, but we need to get like one-on-one with you or in a group setting with you. And then we can really dig in deeply with that. And we prefer to do it in a group setting, honestly, because not only do you get the coaching and the teaching and the accountability, but you also get the community of other couples who are going down the same path in similar circumstances as you are in. And so we can encourage one another and help one another. And so if you are interested in just exploring coaching with us, we do a free coaching call for anyone where we just get to know you better. We kind of find out like what your goals are, what the challenges are that you're facing, and we'll help you right there on the spot on that coaching call. We have got no reservations about doing that. And then if we think that what we have to offer would be a good fit for you, then we'll present that offer if you're okay with that. But it is, I guess the point I want to make is it is not a sales call. It is not us being cheesy and salesy and high pressure. This is all about how we can serve you, and we would love to do that. So if you are interested in that, I'll put a link in the show notes to our calendar. And so you could just go straight there, pick an hour, and the worst case scenario, you're going to come away hopefully getting to know us better, and we'll get to know you better, and we'll throw out some suggestions and some tips along the way that you can put into place right away.
Immediately, yeah.
And did I mention that was for free? Like,
yes.
we do this as a free coaching call.
Yeah.
So we'd love to get to know you better and to help in any way that we can as you walk down your journey as a married couple of building a business. So
I love doing that. This is what we've been called to. This is the calling that God has placed on our lives. This is something that we absolutely love to do, is we help couples who come in who have a dream that they want to pursue but not sure how to do it. They have things in their life that they think, we know that we can do things better, and we love to help couples walk through that. So we look forward to connecting with you. And so I hope that you'll also take what you learned today and what you've learned in this whole series on Psalm 127. Take this and go build your dream business.
Side by side. Take care.
See ya.